From Los Angeles, the home of film and television, this is Film Music Live, a webcast featuring outstanding composers, orchestrators, filmmakers, and more from the world of music for film, television, and video games, talking about their work and answering your questions. Film Music Live is sponsored by the Film Music Network and Film Music Institute. And now the host of Film Music Live, Daniel Schweiger.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel Schweiger, and welcome to Film Music Live, the show where you get to ask the questions to today's top composers. I'm happy to have you here.
Brian Tyler is the rage when it comes to supremely entertaining scores for fast cars, flying superheroes, and the battle for Cowboy Land. But amid his dazzling blockbuster work, there's an equally impressive serious side that goes for the art, deeply moving scores that have dealt with the partition of India, F. Scott Fitzgerald's Last Call, and the nature of journalistic truth. But perhaps none of Tyler's scores to deal with real-world history is as important as the past is present lessons offered in his moving score for Nuremberg. Taking a very different tack to the trial of Nazi war criminals than in Stanley Kramer's judgment at Nuremberg, this is far more of a suspense tale than courtroom testimony that centers on the relationship between psychologist Douglas Kelly and Hitler's surrendered second-in-command, Hermann Göring. Faced with the do-or-die responsibility of holding the Reich's worst accountable, Tyler uses his pulse-pounding talents in service of militaristic suspense, immersive, Hebraic-tinged emotion, and a soulful chorus for the ultimate explosive countdown in demanding justice. All for James Vanderbilt's impactfully moving film that's driven by a sense of holding fascism to rights, a theme that's more important now than ever. But that doesn't mean that Brian Tyler isn't always holding a fun card up his sleeve in his third time out with the Four Horsemen of the super fun Now You See Me franchise. First joining with the Robin Hood Illusionist in 2013, Tyler's music returns to the trickster stage as he joyously combines hip jazz, playful high suspense, and show-stopping energy for a distinctive sound of avenging magic. Nuremberg and Now You See Me, Now You Don't are two scores that couldn't be more contrasting or singular when it comes to Brian Tyler's distinctively stylistic sound.
And now here's a composer equally impressive when it comes to seriousness and a sleight of hand. Welcome to Film Music Live, Brian Tyler.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Have you here.
Same here, man.
Well, first of all, congratulations, number one for the Four Horsemen, with Now You See Me number 3 this weekend.
It's pretty wild. Anytime doing something where you start on a series and then you end up, on your third go at it, it feels good. It feels good in a day and age when it's hard to get a movie made, honestly, to have something 3 times where it's in the theater and you get to go see it kind of the way it was meant to. It was great. I was in New York at the premiere, and it was amazing. And to have these 2 movies come out within 7 days has been amazing, actually, too.
Yeah, it's really 2 sides of the same coin. And I want to give a big shout out and thanks to Lakeshore Records. They're going to be giving 5 copies of Now You See Me and Now You Don't this Friday when the soundtrack actually hits from Lakeshore. Let's get started, I guess, with Now You See Me first, because it's number 1. Tell me about doing the very first score. I mean, how did you hit upon the sound of the Four Horsemen?
It's a pretty unique combination of music, I think, that we're going for, that seems like disparate opposites, kind of the symphonic, fantastic sound of classic scores, but also harkening back to kind of an era of classical music that is kind of has a romanticism to it, and that being it kind of for that spectacle, fanfares, sometimes very traditional in that way, but at the same time having an angle of daring, when you runs alongside jazz, you're talking about different scales, different vibes. and how do you make those mesh so you're not just going from one to the other? And that was the challenge on the first one. But what I did is I sat down, and the director was a drummer, and he really liked my work in general, but he knew my jazz work, and because I'd done Plan B and some different big band things, and I hadn't done Crazy Rich Asians yet, but there was a number of Last Call was jazzcore. So I wanted to be, so I ended up playing a lot of the instruments myself at the beginning, because I play piano live and drums and guitar right here in my studio. And so to get that vibe, instead of going to a studio and getting players, all along the way I was building it, but the actual grooves that would be in the score, and then I was able to conduct to it. The thing that I think people sometimes at the surface level don't realize about maybe Now You See Me is there's this welcome to the eye kind of thematic 1/3 of the movie that's really emotional and like transcendent. That kind of it's hard to describe, but it speaks to like a yearning, a human yearning for existence. It has a different layer that kind of almost goes beyond necessarily what you would think, like looking at the poster of the film, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it has this like this really like it makes you cry. It's kind of has that. It's some of the most powerful music to me when I listen back. They kind of get a lump in my throat. These themes like Welcome to the Eye, and it's and you hear that motif, that and then these chords, and so much so that there's a piece from that's in my show Are We Dreaming, and it's this very existential piece where you see the course of time march through thousands of years of human history and all this. So it's interesting. People out of context, people how they react to that, not even knowing that's from Now You See Me. And then on this latest one, there's a new group of magicians that come in. So I brought in the element that wasn't there before, which is the element of kind of new music, UK drill, drum and bass music, some trap, things like that, kind of like postmodern break beats and things like, it's kind of got more of that. I feel it's a young group that comes in and kind of disrupts everything, disrupts the core we know. So now you have, and those two things often can be seen as opposites too, even jazz and that, kind of the way, so you have these three elements, and they normally wouldn't go together. But in this score, the way it like kind of lays out, it's almost like it only can work for Now You See Me. It's like,
right.
It's like now if you know that, you can't tempt the movie with anything but another Now You See Me score. But it's hard to take all those themes and try to fit it into one other movie. It would be nearly impossible unless it was a Now You See Me like knockoff.
I mean, that's what I loved about it, is that it's a sequel that kind of sets up the future of the franchise with the kind of new magicians, and I really did like, it's definitely the most personal of the films, where it has the most emotional stakes to it.
Yeah, it does. It was really it was cool, and when I moved on a film like that, like you can kind of run with it, and you've been on it 3 times, and you're with the OG crew, you've been working on it for over a decade, and so I got in there and I was able to kind of do some musicianship that I really love to do. I love playing like drum shred. It's like gospel chops, like it's kind of like that Tony Royster Jr. style. And to do that against break beats and then this orchestra, like big brass just playing out, and upright bass and a lot of Rhodes like keys, and then piano, and then throw them in and doing these like Reese bass, like really sound design kind of things, but against this musicianship was like a really high bar also to mix, and I mix the scores as well. So but I really love the way this sounds. If you right now, like the first 2 tracks are available on Lakeshore, you can go and grab those, and then the whole album is on this Friday, and you can really hear how much attention was paid to making the sound experience really something beautiful that feels like it's like ear candy, along with the musical, like it's like that stank, like like, you know, like the way that the fills would go into a break, and the musicians they just slayed it. It was really a joy, and I love everyone involved, all three directors and the producers. And you know, I've known for years. I know the cast, and it was a cool celebration in New York.
Now I'm going to do an instant sleight of hand segue to another fantastic score you did that I love for our very first question from Aaron Cruz. I loved your work on Abigail.
Right.
Can you discuss your approach to balancing elegance and darkness so fluidly, especially in the ballet sequence? Can you share your thoughts on the spotting process as well?
Yeah, you know, Abigail, it's one of my favorite kind of more recent themes that I've written too. It's, you know, the approach is the same. Actually, we can even segue into Nuremberg because of this. In a sense that on everything that I do, be it Yellowstone or Abigail or, you know, Ready or Not or Avengers or whatever it might be, Thor, for instance, was a memorable process like this, is that I write a suite of music, Super Mario Brothers, a suite of music first, and that's something that the directors and the studio come over and they'll hear it, and it's just to give a sense of the entire story. I'm not going in. I don't dive into one scene. I don't like go, okay, I'm just going to go to 17 minutes into the movie or an hour in, and I'll do this one scene because there's no backstory. It's like I need to have that. I need to write full themes, so no matter what scene I go into, if I'm just there's a part of it's being used or whatever, it feels like it has a history and a longer melody that you're kind of attaching yourself to. And on Abigail is I scored this an abstract story just reading it as opposed to seeing the film yet, and it's the story of someone that's misjudged. It's someone that it's from the perspective of this girl that does not age ever, and how it must be really, and it's the first piece on the soundtrack was what I wrote. Almost always the first piece on a soundtrack is what I initially wrote before starting the film. Almost every score I've ever released. And what it was, and it's note for note, this one is the suite, a kind of a girl that's misunderstood, and she doesn't age, and she loves it at first because she's able to, as she becomes smart but looks like a younger person, she's able to fool people and kind of have fun and mischief with it. And then as people misjudge her and don't understand her, and as she gets wise, her take on the world becomes darker and feeling misunderstood. And you hear that music, kind of this beautiful lullaby and kind of elegant melody starts to become dehumanized and kind of and becomes darker as then she turns it around into this, okay, well, now it's my turn to kind of rise up, you know, in that sense. And so it gets more triumphant in a sense as it goes, but darker all along the way. And that's, you know, goes along with the story.
Now,
Yeah.
On the subject of dehumanization and darkness, there is Nuremberg. You know, it is such a different movie than the Stanley Kramer movie. You know, it's done in a super, you know, contemporary way.
Yeah.
I mean, was that always on your mind when you did this? It's okay to make it really accessible.
Well,
Because really,
sort of, not really. I wouldn't say that. The important part of this movie was, you know, it's a responsibility. You know, you're writing music about the Holocaust, and I knew about this story. I'd read the book. My orchestrator wrote the book, who Jack Elhai, many years ago, and we've been talking about this for a long time. The director and I, doing this over a decade, and so the idea wasn't so much access. It was you want that, but you want to just make a really realistic, great film. But here's the thing, the music is classical with elements of reality. So the percussion are boots on the ground in Warsaw, and you have elements of these chords that were actually this kind of bell tone to tell people at Auschwitz and Dachau when they were to have dinner, when they were to go to bed. This kind of a dehumanizing thing, this really off chord, which is in the score. And to bring it all together, the idea that I proposed was, this is so powerful, this subject matter and its reality, and it's the worst of humanity and it's the best of humanity rising up against this machine, this inhuman horror that was unleashed upon the world. And in order to do that, the one thing I wanted to guard against was writing music that felt black and white, that felt like the Holocaust, that's safely in the past. And sometimes movies can do that. Movies about the Holocaust or movies about anything that, in history, if it's kind of has a look and a sound, a musical sound that is like very much of a specific era in the past, as opposed to being music that scores the emotions of what's going on now in terms of how we would view it. And I didn't want to make it feel comfortably in the past, because I wanted to make it feel like it was yesterday, because it was yesterday. In human history, the Holocaust was yesterday. I don't want people to feel we're safe. We're not, obviously. Look at what's going on in our world. And the things that have happened in the last year, 2 years, are things that no one would have believed 10 years ago could happen again. And we're already there. So when I was writing this music, albeit symphonic, and it definitely harkens to traditional like a spiritual Jewish music and things like that, some folk music and things like that. It nods to it, but the way it's done is in a very immediate, emotional kind of modern way, modern symphony, and it kind of it was able to bridge the gap. So when you are watching the movie, it feels contemporary. The music isn't necessarily contemporary. It's still symphonic. I wanted to go for that, but it has to make you uncomfortable in that way. And also it's emotional without pandering. It's kind of has to have something that is respectful to it, but at the same time nails these motherfuckers, right? It's so there is a I couldn't just write music for the Nuremberg. I dove in, and I wasn't able to just start at the trials. It fell out of context. And what I did is I went back to 1933 and I started writing music on the rise of the Nazis, and at the same time what families were doing, sort of unaware what was going to happen in the future from the Jewish perspective, and also others that were persecuted. And so I started, and I did this 4-hour suite. It wasn't a 17-minute kind of initial. I wrote like 4 hours of music before I even started the movie. And really the last chapter of that music are the trials at Nuremberg. That kind of, you feel in music, it rises. Like, it's not, also, I didn't want it to be like, this is a one-sided descent. It needed to feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel if you fight back, and which we as humanity did against this. And this was the first strike back against that in this story, is this Nuremberg. We're going to nail these guys. And so as it started rising, and you hear, I put kind of a suite in 4 parts on right at the beginning of the album to take you through that journey. And you hear kind of the families unaware what's going to happen in Poland and different places, Jewish families celebrating their holidays. At the same time, the machinations of evil and inhuman indifference to even recognizing people as people is happening at the same time. You hear them merge, and you even hear at one point in Nuremberg Suite Part 2 and 3, you hear in 3 and 4, the marching of like footsteps at the beginning, and that's the percussion, as if you're underground hiding in Warsaw or something like that, and the idea of having, like, there's a lullaby. It starts with this lullaby, and it feels like something that a mother would sing to their child, at bedtime. There are pieces like that that actually exist. I want to write something specific for us, and that was kind of one of the main themes. And something that I realized happened was during this trial, the interesting thing, actually reading the transcripts and how this psychiatrist was interviewing a historically just a monster like Hermann Goering or any of them, is how do you even do this? This is something that there was fear that we wouldn't be able to actually get a guilty verdict. I mean, it seems crazy now, right? Like, of course, what? But at the time, it was like the Gish Gallop, oh, it's fake news thing. Like, right now, you catch someone red-handed, and they're like, "What do you mean?" And we have, if you attack the Capitol, and you see it, you do run. No, no, they're good. Cops, it doesn't matter. We'll let them out. We'll pardon them.
Right.
Whatever. It's just, it's so insane. And this was happening then. And I think and that's why John Ford, as a director, was sent into Auschwitz to actually film. It was the first time kind of movies or media of any kind of art is normally on the big screen. They filmed, the concentration camps, which is in the movie, as they showed this at the trials, and that was the crossover with the film you mentioned, which was Judgment at Nuremberg, which I saw as a child and really affected me, because you see scenes, you see what the people in that courtroom were watching. They for those that don't know, there was this footage from the wreckage of Auschwitz and all the bodies and everything, and it's really rough and very, very emotional. And you are in the theater. If you haven't seen it, it's brief, but you are there as if you're them watching it, and you're seeing the cast, who was not shown it ahead of time, seeing it on screen. So, for music, like, I never had such a big responsibility, in a sense, to write something. I dove in deep. It is not easy in terms of the kind of emotional toll when you're, because I write like 18 hours a day or something like that, and I was in there for a long time, over a year, writing. And yeah, and it kind of culminated with when I was going to tie it to that lullaby I was saying. There are these two moments, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying that that they were found guilty.
Now you wouldn't know.
Yeah. So basically, there's a scene where there's a Nazi that is brought to the gallows, and if you remember, there's these bells that go gum gum. It's three chords that are very dissonant, and those are the sounds that he used to, at the camps, play for the prisoners, the Jews, to go to the ovens or to anything. It just, it's an actual thing. And I used that as he's being led to the gallows, the justice of the very thing that he used is now ringing in his head. Right.
Wow.
What I did, what did I, and he is trembling. And then at the end, he says, Heil Hitler, it's insane. And then Hermann Goering, he's able to commit suicide in this prison cell. But as he's doing, if you remember, he's looking at a picture.
Yeah.
And it's many years ago. And he's looking at this woman and having thoughts of, like, I had this relationship, and this is, I was a good person. Look, I loved, right? And he's kind of trying to convince himself that even at the end, he's a good person. And you hear the lullaby playing, but then you hear high up this dissonance, and it's the chords of those bells that were used against the prisoners. And even in his last moments, although we never saw this, I would like to think he was struggling to say, I'm a good person, but he couldn't escape his own conscience. And even at the end, he couldn't bring himself to even say a lie like that he knew. And hopefully, I always hope there's this moment in any person's life that is hell-bent on destruction or dehumanization, that they have a moment where they check themselves, and it's like a hope against hope, you know. But in the meantime, it has to be like these people that fought and put the trial on and worked hard to bring them to justice. And it's crossing over so much with real life. It's shocking.
Yeah.
And when I was writing, like all the ICE stuff was happening, and just like, you know, treating people like they're less than you, even though the only difference is that they're saying, well, you know, they don't look like me, or whatever stupid ideas some person has.
Now, something a bit happier from Darren Wanacott. Hey, Brian, I really enjoyed your concert at the Royal Festival Hall in London. Any upcoming plans for more concerts?
Yeah, very much so. This is like 2026 is kind of it's a big year for me for doing that, to getting on the road, because I have Are We Dreaming, which is coming out, and a Monster Cat, and we're doing multiple volumes of that, and it's like the modern day Fantasia. We've talked about it before and been working on it for a number of years, and it's finally like getting and that's a big like touring thing. It's music festivals and things like that, and then also doing these sometimes paired with Are We Dreaming 2 are these film music concerts, and going to be going to Europe. So it's certainly, you know, I love playing in London. It's I got to say, it was so cool. Like, you know, the first time I played there was an after party, and I didn't realize that people were waiting for me in the front of, you know, after the show, and it was in the cold, and they waited for hours as there was this after party, and they're waiting for me to leave so they could say hi. I was at the artist exit, whatever, either. And somehow when I was leaving, they waited for like 3 hours or 4 hours or something, and then I got security just like pushed me into the car to go to the hotel. And even though it was this amazing concert, all I could think about all night was those people that waited for me. I didn't friggin' talk, you know, like I wanted to, I always is, anyone that knows me, every time I spoke at the Grove Theater and everything, I'll talk to every single person I can, you know? And so when I came back, it was cool. That group that was waiting, they all became friends because they were waiting so long, and they kind of some on vacation together, and they all went to the concert again. And I was able to see them at that next one and kind of redeem. It was years later. So, and I recognized them, and, you know, we all talked. It was really cool. So like, I always feel like I owe England, and I record there all the time. So yeah, we're going to be doing a big program. It's going to be fun.
Now, the Bond music would love to know. We talked a lot about Nuremberg, but what was the most difficult or interesting scene in Now You See Me to score?
Oh man, there's a number of them, because you would have these sequences where there's so much subterfuge, you know, and you as an audience member are trying to figure out, wait a minute, who's playing who here, and there's a sequence that's a lot of cat and mouse and everything, and then something, and I don't want to give it away, so, but there's something big that happens that's really emotional with one of the characters, and doing that kind of pivot, it's musically difficult, but always the thing I look forward to most, because emotions and the experience in film is predicated so much on the element of subverting expectations. So when you feel an emotion you didn't think you were going to feel in a moment, or there's a plot twist or whatever it might be, that dynamic shift makes you go, oh my God, you know, that really is impactful. And in music, even outside of film music, the things that we remember are like, I did not know that was going to do that. And if it musically really works, it is the best feeling from the perspective of a listener. And I always write music from the perspective of a listener. Everything I do is, are we dreaming? It's everything, every shot, every frame is like, how does it affect the experience of someone watching or listening to something that had to do with the creation of? And actually, there's this really cool thing. There's something called loss of authorship that John Lennon talked about, and if you can somehow kind of separate yourself from the work that you're writing, and you can really let go of the fact that you wrote it, you can kind of experience things in a way that an audience would. And with that sequence, that was certainly one of those. And I love the way it turned out too. But yeah, I'll go with that. I know I can't give it away. That's the thing, is Now You See Me is so, it's the surprise. So much of that is, and there's an emotional surprise in that movie that if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, we're not gonna. People still have to see the movie. No spoilers. Okay. Now we've got a question from Talbot Street Productions. So of course, we've just seen the awesome new Super Mario trailer. Will you incorporate Super Mario Galaxy game themes in the Super Mario Galaxy movie? And how far into the score are you currently?
Okay, so all I can say, so this one I have to like really, it's like, so it's mum's the word. So I will say, if you enjoyed how I approached the last movie and how that was actually, I can speak to that. It was magical. Speaking of magic, to write music that is now a part of new music that's a part of the Mario universe, and that people actually they think like the main theme from the last one, yeah, all that stuff, is not for Mario. That's my original score. But it's cool to talk to people and like, yeah, man, I loved it. I remember that theme growing up. I was like, no, that's actually new, but we really wanted to make it so anything that was from the games, of which there's like a zillion Easter eggs in the first movie, from references to the games, and then how they blend with new score and kind of the bring it all together in like a cinematic experience was really cool. So on this film, it's just exciting. It's like it really, everyone is going to be pleased. I think you go in there. It's so good. It's so good. It's amazing. It's really incredible. So that's all I really can say, though. I can't be specific. I wish I could.
So we've got the question from NCC 19825H. Hello, Star Trek fan here. How was it writing the music for Enterprise?
So anyone that knows me knows I'm massive Trekker and Trekkie, whatever you want to call it. My comfort food is going through OG, TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise. I watch every episode of every series multiple times. So it was like, wow, when they asked me to do it. And one was a Borg episode, which of course, as a Star Trek fan, is such a big part of, the whole, from the Locutus storyline and all that. So it was really cool. And I remember, LeVar Burton was directing and so he came to the sessions, and I was able to go on set. They were filming at this time, and I sit in the captain's chair and things like that. And it was just I wanted it to feel as big as I remember as a kid hearing Jerry's score for the movie, and then James's score for Wrath of Khan and Spock, and just like, what? I mean, I was a big like Star Wars guy, you know, and I love John and those scores, you know, clearly, and it was just so cool to see, you know, Jerry who had such a classic take on symphonic music, and then James comes in like this rogue young psycho, you know, like this composer with like anvils and like and all that kind of playing on the Jerry stuff, and then this lyrical beauty, and so I wanted to bring that together for those shows, and it was fantastic conducting them, and it was at Paramount, and James Horner was at one of my sessions, which was really, really cool.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
He said something I'll never forget too. It was basically what he said was he asked it because there was a part that had this really big fanfare, and my orchestra wasn't that big, but he's like, well, it sounds like it, and he looked at the sheet music, like the conductor score, nervously, you know, like said, sure, you know, yeah, take a look, and with a wink, he was saying like, kind of, good job. Everyone has access to the same set of notes, but you did this. Like, and the reference was like, everyone has access to typing out, like back in the day on a typewriter, but you don't. You have access to the same words as Shakespeare or anyone, right? But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it won't be unique. So it was kind of like, I could have done that, and that's the thing. It's like, yeah, like anything that is written, you can it can be copied, but if he's saying like, just keep that unique voice, and even though everyone else has access to the same notes, you be you. It was a really profound. I've never forgotten it. Like, it's like such a lesson. When you worry about technology or AI or whatever, oh my gosh, there's these samples that sound so good now. What are we going to do? And musicians and composers, but just because, but everyone has access to the same notes. But there are, if you really bring something to it, that's your perspective, then you can really do something special. And that's what I was hoping at the time, that I'd have a long career. And it was really early on. I think it was like 2002. It was like 20.
Like that,
yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, thank you for the question.
So Andrea Schroeder would like to know, what would you say is the most important thing for you to work on daily these days?
Well, I mean, every day I write music. I do not remember a day, and there's been days, there's been times where I'm traveling or something happens, you know. But when I'm in the studio here with my instruments, I take parts of the day to write. I sit down at the piano or guitar or the drums or cello or whatever and write music. Sometimes I just write it in my head or write it down on paper. I love the process of creating mock-ups in terms of what it might be, but I guard against that because there's limitations of samples. So I do that. But then I also really take time with two other things artistically. One is three really. One is mixing and but not mixing, producing. So like creating these sonic differences between scores so they sound unique, or any musical experience, whether you're influenced by avant-garde serialism or a drum and bass producer from the UK that is like Are We Dreaming? We have it's insane, the sound design and everything on that, and that is the delivery device is very important. Just like a singer is very important to what the melody is. If you hear it, it's very different if Celine Dion sings My Heart Will Go On versus my tone deaf cousin that is 7 years old. And so it's kind of the I think I'm always working on that delivery device and making it different and unique, and sound is so important, as well as the written note is just paramount. And then the other thing is I work on visuals, and because I'm shooting and I'm editing and vis effects on this science fiction meets reality 150 trillion years long journey that is Are We Dreaming that changes every single night you see it. So it's a constant thing. I mean, we're up to, I think, 55 hours of show that depending on what night you are, you will go through a different permutation. And will humanity rise up to join together to stop the end of time itself, right? So you're going through, and it starts thousands of years ago and then goes to the end of time. And so that's something that I'm working, so I'm constantly trying to take the perspective of like, what it's an alternate timeline where we sent Voyager out. And there's a little bit of a tangent, I'll be quick. So, in 1979, we sent Voyager out into space, right? Carl Sagan, and it was in case anyone ever found it, the Voyager. But in a sense, we leave Earth in about 250,000 years in the storyline, and we forget that there was even Earth eventually. It's fake news. It was so long ago, there was no Earth kind of thing. They're the ones that find Voyager. They come back to Earth, and it's us, but it's a different us. And will this be the timeline? Is the timeline we're on now? People say, yeah, since 2016, it feels like we're on the wrong timeline. What's going on in this world, And it kind of takes that tack. It continues the wrong way. And how are we able to go back in time and reverse things? And so when I'm in there and I'm writing music, and I'm also thinking like, wow, if we shot in the Andes, if we could somehow get a drone up to that one spot, just get one actor up there, maybe we can do this one sequence. So it's like, writing music, directing, and writing storyline is a part of my everyday, and in preparing for 2026, which is just a massive thing. And I don't know if you know this, but I had a really scary thing happen to me this year.
What happened?
Like really scary. So I almost died. In August, I out of nowhere, completely non-causal, I had a double within an hour, a double subarachnoid brain hemorrhage.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
dude.
and it kills almost everyone that it happens to. And as I'm working on stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I have a headache, and we were talking about a test show that I was going to do. I think I was going to like the Sphere or something, and I'm like, wow, I have a headache, and I'm like, something's wrong. Turned out something was wrong, and I find out that only with what happened, the size of what it was, like only 1 out of 6 people even make it to the hospital, and it was like, I shouldn't even be here.
Wow.
I shouldn't be alive. And the bigger miracle is that here I am, and I'm playing. I'm back to.
You're 150%.
Yeah, I'm doing tours. I'm playing tennis and basketball. I'm doing all my drumming and conducting, right? And that's like, it's when you're faced with something like that, where it's like, man, it's lyrically even in Are We Dreaming now? Because like, how can it not be? But you'd never know if you're going to open your eyes again. You realize what's happening, and they put you out, and you're in the ambulance. I'm like, I don't know if this could be. I won't even know. And to wake up and realize they're like, you are lucky to even be here. You shouldn't even be here. But the thing, they're like, Brian, take this as a new lease on life, which I did, because I was at, they're like, look at the waiting room within neurology. Like it should be, even if you survive, it's like 7 months before you're walking or talking, pretty much. They said that it was kind of like, this was the analogy the neurologist gave, is like, if my brain was like Manhattan, it got hit by 2 nukes within an hour. And then when they went in afterwards and the dust had settled and cleared to check out to see what was in there, it was as if no windows were broken in any of the buildings and no car alarms were going off. It is impossible, but it happened.
Well, you get hit by the neutron bomb, man.
Yeah, it was almost, it's like certain, like when it happened, anyone that knew what was happening, it's like they're basically telling you, yeah, it's, we're sorry. Like the odds are not, but and the thing is like, wow. And it's one of those things that has a non-recurrence. It's not the kind of thing that I'm susceptible or anything. It could have struck anybody. It's just a lightning strike. So it doesn't happen twice. So I went through that, and it's like, I'm going off the tangent a little bit.
No, please.
There's a story, and I'll be real brief on this, but so I had just written one of the kind of pieces in Are We Dreaming? It's called Gates of Time. And in Gates of Time, you see a counter at the top of how many days you have in your life. And if 2 babies are born, you see a split screen, and they grow up, and it goes through life, and you see it counting down to 10,000 days, 5,000 days, 4,000 days, 800 days, 500 days, 30 days, 10 days. Everyone has a day 0. Everyone. And it gets down to 0. In the middle of that piece, it says now, as if it just says, you're going countdown, it says now. And you keep on going past it. So it's, I guess, the average age of my audience. And it kind of, you see people that look basically that now. Goes all the way forward. Then you see a hand in like a hospital like this, and then someone else holding it, and it says 0. And the idea is, what if that moment, some angel or entity or alien shows up and says, yo, doesn't say that. It shows up, and you have minutes left, and says, I can take you back right now to November 17th, 2025. That's today, right? So if you were on day 0, and I'll ask you this, Daniel, if you were literally, you have an hour left, and an angel came to you and said, I can take you back to when you were young, November 17th, 2025, will you take it? Yes.
Well, yeah, of course.
Okay. So what's the difference between, let's say, and you erases your future memory, but when you're taken back, you reset. So let's just pretend that happened 10 seconds ago, and you just showed up right now. You were on day 0, but now you're here today. What if that really happened? The point is, there's 0 difference. That having happened and us sitting here right now, none. So why not act as if it did happen, right? Why not act as if I just got a second chance when I looked at myself as young right now, and we all do, I'm getting older, right? Or whatever. We have the gift of coming back right now. Would you do it? Yes. And so the weird thing is, I just wrote that, and then this happened to me. So now what happens is, I said, oh my God. Sophie said, you had your own Gates of Time experience. You wrote this thing. It just happened to you. You just had your day 0, and then you were brought back. So now how are you going to live your life? And now I see things from a different perspective. It's inevitable. What do I do with my days? I have limited days. They're going to run out. So I'm going to tell the people I love that I love them. I'm going to do projects that I want to do only. I'm going to use my days to choose joy and experience life, and try to move the needle in a positive direction on this earth. That's all I can do with any skill and intelligence or anything that I have. And so Nuremberg also was the thing I was finishing at the time.
Wow.
And I was literally writing that, and I wrote from the hospital. The day after it happened, I was still writing. I wrote and the perspective change has been profound, to say the least. And it's good to be here. It's because I know we're all lucky to be alive, but boy, this was a dude. Oh, you really are lucky to be alive, Brian.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
So on a whole other note, we've got a question from Louis Versolini, and he wants to know, how difficult is it in Now You See Me to score a movie where it's based on misdirection?
Well, okay, so the thing is, it's not. Film scoring is misdirection a lot of the time, even in a movie that's not about misdirection. So, we were talking about this earlier, saying subversion of expectations. drama is, and you can read any Shakespeare. It's like, it is so based on a sense of, I know where this is going. No, I don't know where this is going. Or one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, it's something that influenced me and wanted to go into film, was Alfred Hitchcock, and the way Bernard Herrmann would score. And there's another thing in Art Dreaming. There's something called Cosmic Butterfly, and it's the idea that if you really want to do something that's really an experience, mind blowing, start at the end and finish with the beginning when you're working on something, so you know your goal. This happens in magic too, literal magic. So I did magic growing up, and I did shows and stuff, and I would always just think of the effect, what would happen. I wouldn't know how to do the trick, and I would see if I could work it backwards. How can I do it where I say, something about what's in your wallet, and then they say, oh, it's my license. I'm like, is this your license? Whatever. How would I do that? So I start with here's your license. I work backwards. Okay, I'm going to meet them earlier in the night. I'm going to take the wallet out of their pocket. Whatever it might be, how to get there. It was it's like the long game. So with music, and you're writing something for something like Now You See Me, you want to have it so the structure of it feels like it's not structured. That we're not trying to fool you, right? Like, it's like setting up a trick. You're like, hey, nothing up my sleeves. Everything's normal, and of course, it's not that at all. So with music or filmmaking, you want it to be effortless. You're going to the movie theater knowing that something's going to happen that you may not know is going to happen, be it a mystery or anything. But if you can get people to believe you're going down one road and it's another, the effect is so satisfying. I read a book about Robert Houdin when I was a kid, who's a magician that Harry Houdini named himself, or kind of modeled himself after. And he would do this long game thing that I thought was so badass. He planted an orange tree when he was like a kid, I think a teenager, knowing that it would take like 30 years to grow, but he put something in the seed and all this stuff. And he's like, okay, in 35 years, I'm going to come back here and do some trick where I say, chop down the tree. It's impossible. Look what's in it. And he did it. And people are like, what the hell did you? You know what I mean? Like, it's so baller. Like, dude, you did all that time? Are you kidding me? So there was a thing where, and so that to me was like the ultimate. I'm like, oh my God. I had no idea how that would influence me. I even there's something where I filmed something 13 years ago, thinking, oh, there may be a project I want to do. And there's a kid actor that grows up. He's very interesting. I want to film him later and blow people's minds by showing this clip of this person. And then later I do a sequel where you see him as a child. Like, how did Brian do that? Well, I filmed, I didn't know I'd be doing Are We Dreaming, but I did that. I filmed it, all that. You know what I mean? So things like that, if you set it up, and musically, that's why you want to write everything in a theme ahead, because you have the whole, like, I'll write the whole structure of a whole score, not just the theme, like Mario or Nuremberg or anything like that. After I write the initial theme, I'll write the whole thing. So I'm not just going in here and seeing how it fits together. I'll write it. I won't mock it up yet. I'll just write it like loosely so I know what the whole thing is. So we're from your perspective, from the who asked the question, how do you kind of do these cat and mouse, things that have surprises? It's like I already knew from the very beginning. I knew where I was going the whole time. So musically,
Well, Lakeshore just showed up and they gave you a big props on your awesome weekend.
I love
they're the best. Now, Dale would like to know, and it's something I myself had no idea that you were doing these voices. Can you tip us off to some of the more abstract examples of using your voice or spoken singing and the scores of yours?
Yeah, in fact, I'm not going anywhere. Just want to show you something I always have handy, right? My voice is one of the main instruments in all my scores. And this goes back to way back. So there's a movie I did called Panic that Henry Brumell directed, a drama way back. It's like 2000. And one of the main things is this ethereal kind of, you know, it was something I remember listening to, like Brian Eno and some like early U2 records, like the early stuff, and they would use voices like in the background singing with like reverb and things as an instrument. And I thought it was so fascinating. I was like, well, I'm a singer, you know, I was a singer for years in bands and stuff, and I was in, you know, like rock bands, and I sang like R&B and metal, and I was in like a lot of different things, hip hop. I used to, like, you know, like there's like I was recording a lot on hip hop records and kind of, you know, all sorts of things. So the vocal thing, even like Six String Samurai, Bubba Hotep, the early kind of wild stuff, there's choirs, and there's just me layered like 20, 30 times. Frailty, Thor, Avengers, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, like some of the big themes that I do. The choir is a combination of, sometimes it's just me, you know, singing. It's not samples. I can do this falsetto that sounds like a boy soprano, and a lot of it scores Abigail, Godsend, Darkness Falls, a lot of those things that have solo, kind of like a sound, like it's like a boy soprano. That's me, and I'm just doing a really high falsetto. But then it's not just like literal singing like a choir. I use it. I'll take it and I'll warp it, and it'll sound like it's almost like a pad or a synth or something, but it has the human element of what you can do with the voice. And that's why I love, there's few things that do that. I find cello is another, all the stringed instruments, but for me, I play cello because you can portamento and glissando and vibrato, and you can move the note, as opposed to on a guitar, you're kind of limited, or piano especially, you're limited by the keys you hit, and once you hit it, that's it. But you know, being able to and that kind of thing. And so I have that. Duduk does something like that too, which I like using. It kind of sounds like a human voice if you think about it, some of the wind instruments. So vocals are, so I sing almost like every day, you know. Yeah, it's sometimes people are surprised about that, especially when they hear me singing like a song that's full on, you know, like singing out. They don't know that and also I grew up kind of being also with film scoring, I was like a mimic. I could sing a lot of different styles and change my voice like pretty radically. Like it would sound like the timbre of it I could change. And I would try to sound like you know, Dave Gahan or Phil Anselmo, or like, you know, The Weeknd or whatever, you know. And so I got good at doing that because, of course, when I started doing films, they were zero budget. So it was really an advantage to play as many instruments as I do and just record them live and then sing it, because it doesn't sound like it's in the box and canned, even on a movie that had no budget. And that's really how I got my start. And that's what kind of maybe separated me a bit, where they heard the kind of the quality of the sound. It's like, whoa, this sounds like, was there any budget on this thing? You know, kind of thing. and I was like, I'm just playing a zillion things. You know, I'm playing live instead of relying on samples, which are good, but it can kind of sound samey. And that's where you get kind of the conditioning effect, where your ear gets used to it. And then it becomes like uncanny valley, kind of like with CG, where at first you're like, wow, that looks so real. You can't even tell the difference between a human being and CGI. And then like 2 years later, like, wow, that looks like crap. Why did I like that? And because, you know, human beings are smart. So you start to recognize, like, wait a minute, you know, like with AI, you know, you have the hand that's like, you know, like kind of you're coming out of the ear or something. At first, like, I didn't even notice that hand was his ear, you know. And the same with music, with samples and stuff. If you do it just like everybody else, people will catch on quickly, and their ear gets trained. Same thing.
Well, on that note, here's a really good question to wrap up our audience question part of this from Kevin Cronin. Brian, how have you kept your music so fresh in approach and sound after all of these years?
Yeah, you know, it's something that I embrace is change. I've never been of the kind of the school like, it was better when I grew up, and you know, if we just got back to the good old days, right? So I think the thing that I'm that's good is that in terms of that is that I'm constantly fascinated by new music. When I hear something, like I won't close myself off to even artists that maybe I didn't enjoy their previous album, or a composer in the classical world, modern classical world. There's people that I was like, I don't know if I get this. And then something else comes out and I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to give it another shot. Or I play shows and go to a lot of music festivals. And I cannot tell you how many times I was like, in the back of my mind, I'm going, okay, I'm going to this show. I'm going to give them a chance. But I didn't really like their last whatever. And I'm blown away. Like, what the, and in that particular part of my personality, I think has really helped staying humble, and that like, I always have something to learn, you know, and it's like a superpower. If you're open, you know, realizing that you have things to learn is how you evolve. It's like the same thing as also admitting that you're wrong in life. You know, if you dig in your heels, like, nah, I got it, you would never learn anything. Imagine if humanity was like, we got it covered. We know that thunder was caused by this guy up in the sky hitting a hammer. So scientists don't try to figure out cyclostrophic balance. You don't need to. You know, so with music, it's not even that I like try to do that. It's that I can't help but kind of evolve in that way. And that's kind of been like the thing that ends up being the things that I love end up being my style, how I incorporate it and my spin on it. So I appreciate the question, though.
Yeah, I mean, now, you know, personally, is the child of a father who survived Kristallnacht, whose anniversary it just was. Yeah, I mean, do you feel, you know, that it's? I mean, now you watch Nuremberg, and it's like, okay, well, if this happened today, these guys would all get found in this, and they get a little pin to wear it in an award show. But
I know, man, it's almost like there's. Go ahead, so finish.
I mean, do you feel now, having gone through what you've gone through, it's more important than ever for artists to take a stand?
Yeah, it is. I am tired of people kind of just trying to please every side, no matter how inhumane it is, and trying to maintain a fan base or whatever it might be, without saying, this is not right. It's not right. And if you don't like that, don't come to my concert. Fine. But the idea that we as human beings shouldn't treat each other with respect, and every human being, when they're born, they deserve to have a shot. And I remember thinking some dark thoughts when not only was I writing, you know, Nuremberg and trying, but the fact that I was, even when I woke up at the time, it was like, we didn't know if I would even make it, right? And I'm thinking how hard it is for people that got a hospital or anywhere to deal with the fact that people unfairly are taken too quickly, and to think someone does that on purpose. And that there was a group of people that was like, you know, we're better than the other. And when we're really on this tiny little floating pale blue dot, as Carl Sagan said, floating suspended in a sunbeam like a speck in this, you know, giant universe, and we're all sharing the same air on this tiny little rock. And to think on that little rock, from an outside perspective, that these human beings, they are drawing lines, artificial lines that are invisible, saying, this is where I am, that's where you are, you're a different color, you're a different whatever, you know, God is on my side, not yours. And so I have the right, because I was born in the United States or wherever, so therefore the religion or mantra or philosophy of which I grew up is the correct one, and aren't I special, you know? And so I'm going to, you know, I'm going to use my power to put you down. I don't understand it, but at the same time, there is a repeating pattern that a certain small percentage can lead masses to an unfortunate position that feeds upon our worsts instincts, which is self-preservation. But we're a social species. We have empathy, and we wouldn't have gotten here if we didn't help out our neighbor. We would still just be saying, this is my land. I have to do everything. I'm growing everything, all the seeds and all the plants and everything and all that. I'm not going to talk to anybody. But no, it was actually during a massive drought in human history, millennia ago, where it was so bad that the only ones that survived, that naturally selected into the population, were ones that were like, hey, you got the seeds over there, I got some water over here, let's help each other. And that's where societal kind of empathy evolved. And now we're beings that should want the best for the other. We should feel sickened, as most people are, when they see footage of people being inhuman to others, or harming, or violence. Unfortunately, some of the people that rise to power were like then, do it on deceit, and unfortunately, a certain part of our population doesn't have that. They're sociopaths, and so with art, we have to, as artists, stand on business and be like, it's really the thing that I'm hoping is, and it happened in the 60s, that some injustice happens and the artists rise up and lead a kind of cultural awakening somehow, or a big part of it, that the young, energetic people out there, whether they're listening to music and they're listening to lyrics that speak to them from people that are intelligent, that have a heart, that make art. And to me, I'm really proud of Nuremberg, because we didn't make this movie for any other reason, but we were driven to. And Jamie, William Sherrick, a lot of the producers and stuff had survivors and non-survivors of Auschwitz, and like you're saying, it touches upon all of us in some way, And so this was personal, in a way where it's like, I was saying, what am I going to do with my days that I have left now that I have this second chance? It's things like that, where I feel like I can use what I was given, the gift, and I've been very fortunate, of doing these movies that have been very successful. But at the heart of it, me as a composer, I was always more of a very in your feels kind of a composer that was best writing music about the human condition or history. And in fact, I was doing that at the beginning a lot of the time, and then I had to prove that I could do an action film when a friend of mine got an action film, and they saw me as this other thing, and then I was able to do superheroes and all sorts of things, and I love those things. I love them. And at the same time, my wheelhouse is actually over there. So I'm going to continue to do both, and do it as well as I can for as long as I can.
Now, my final question for you is, we've been talking about this for years, but when do we get to see in Los Angeles the concert of Are We Dreaming? I got to see it.
Yeah. So in fact, we're on that precipice where it's like, we're mastering and mixing, and it's such a massive project. We're figuring out the kind of how we release these massive kind of volumes to get people in. But we're doing something, and there's an announcement coming. Los Angeles is going to be really fortunate. There's a kind of Mecca, right? And there's a home base to things, and also in Vegas, but we're taking it around the world. And it's first quarter 2026. And that's why I'm gonna be working, I'm working over the holiday where, I've got this great team we're going through, because there's so much music, but it's so detailed, and the visuals, and I'm looking at color timing and final shots, and so it's gonna, once the announcement comes out, then we're gonna be able to say exactly what dates they are. But it's that first quarter, starting in it's really early February, and it is going to as were you at the BMI thing when I got my lifetime achievement icon?
Well, yes, yeah.
Okay, so it's really cool. So the director Greg Gutanis was, and Terry Ler Sheridan and all of them were, John Chu, they were interviewed Kevin Feige at Marvel, and they talked about my life, my career, and all that. And there was a moment where when the director says, he was finished with his interview, and he said, have you heard about this Are We Dreaming thing? And I don't even remember this. It was in the documentary they showed, or about me, or whatever, that visual. And he's like, okay, roll film. And he kept talking about it. And he's like, he said something like, okay, everyone here is gathered. They're for this. Brian Tyler's getting his career award, his film scoring. He's like, but the thing he's going to be remembered for is Are We Dreaming? And that was like, whoa, like that, like all of a sudden, like my heart, like, you know, like, oh boy, I better deliver now, you know, because it's a project that is not like a single project that I just do. It's a, you know, it's like a multi-decade, like intensely wild, you know, experience that's not like a film. It's every night is different. You're brought into this world of, it's like you're going through a portal into another dimension. It is that. And what I'm going to do is I would love to have you by, and we can run, I can do like we rerun it. We run it.
That would be a dream come true, man. I've been hearing about this forever.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy. It's so the magnitude of how difficult it is to do something that's like a film like Star Wars or you know, Inception, but that is like changing every night and like is live. It's insane, but it works. And so yeah, I'll bring you by. There's like we do a blackout theater, and you think you have no idea that you're in it. It's like completely like you don't even realize. You feel like you're on a ship, really, or in a mind. And I would love to run it for you, some of it for you.
I am so there. I mean, Brian, I think that I can speak for all of us, and we are so glad you are here.
Yeah, me too, huh?
We're glad you're here. Thank you for joining us at Film Music Live, and I want you all to watch Nuremberg and Now You See Me, Now You Don't in theaters with their scores available on Sony Classical and Lakeshore Records. A big thanks to Jeff Sanderson at Chasen & Company, the team at Lakeshore Records, Jamie Bertel at Sony, our producer Dale Turner, and graphic designer Mark Banning, and we'll see you on the next Film Music Live.
Thanks, y'all. Next time.